Good evening. This presentation is entitled Racism versus Equality, a Paradox in America. Equality can be defined as the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, or opportunities. Anytime two things are in a state of balance with each other, we can say that they have attained equality. This can be applied to groups of people across races, across religions, across genders, or any other different groups. Or it can also be applied to two individuals or multiple individuals. As long as everyone is being treated the same, they're being given equal treatment and have attained equality. The United States has long since prided itself on its citizens being treated equally. Citizens are given free and public education, regardless of race, gender, or ethnicity. And the eyes of the law are supposed to see everyone as being equal. Whether or not this is true is a separate issue. Equality and racism are constantly at odds with each other, and proponents of each are vying for preeminence. Racism is often defined as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. Simply put, racism is the idea that one race is categorically and inherently better than another. Racism, quite sadly, has been a horrifically unfortunate part of American culture for centuries. Well-known examples of this include the American slave trade, which lasted into the 1860s, racist laws, which prevail up into the 1900s, and unequal access to education and other public services. The United States has consistently worked towards equality for all of its citizens. Little by little, America as a country and collectively has worked towards leveling the playing field. It started with the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery and involuntary and unpaid labor in the United States. Even at the time, however, it was still considered a controversial law by some. The Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 60s guaranteed constitutional rights could not be infringed upon for any reason, including and specifically on the basis of race. Affirmative action reforms have worked towards creating a level playing field across races and genders. The United States has a long and storied history with racism. Racism has been referred to as America's original sin, and in an article by Pons in 2013, he notes that Native Americans were the first to suffer from racism, and shortly thereafter, it was Black Africans who were brought to this country during the transatlantic slave trade that were followed as the primary targets of American racism. In the 1860s, this American Civil War was said to be fought over the institution of slavery. Despite this war, racism continued in a number of different ways. Jim Crow laws in the southern United States enforced de jure racism, which involved laws which violated individuals' constitutional rights based on race, and they were a blatant violation of the all men are created equally doctrine. More modern examples of racism in America include college enrollments are lower for minorities across the board, and Native Americans have routinely been oppressed on their own ancestral lands, most recently during the Dakotas' battle over the oil pipeline. Sadly, racism still exists today. Despite serving no social benefit, racism remains a driving factor for some in modern America. past 10 years in American politics have seen an uptick in discussions on race relations and what seems to be an increase in racial tensions, fueled by a number of controversial interactions with police, racially fueled politics, and passionate identity politics have all led to the perception of racism being on the rise in the modern era. Racism and equality are on two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. Equality cannot truly exist when racism persists, even on a small scale. People within the United States cannot be subjected to racism and experience true freedom. A truly equal society would treat people of all races, ethnicities, genders, orientations, and every other subgroup as being given equal opportunity for success. These are pictures of racism throughout the 1950s, 60s, and modern day examples leading up to the Charlottesville riots just a few short years ago. Here are the references. Thank you very much.